Miss B Biology. In this lesson, I'll be helping you to get over your fear of 4 to 6 marks GCSE Biology questions. So grab your book and grab your pen and let us work through some common 6 markers. The first question is from the required practical microscopy and it values 4 marks, a common exam question asking you to describe how to use the microscope to observe a prepared slide of onion cell. So students, you don't need to speak about removing the thin layer of onion, placing it on the slide, adding iodine solution. That's what you would have done at school in your practical session. You don't need to say that because the slide is already prepared for you, right? It says describe how to use the microscope to observe a prepared slide. So just go ahead now and start your response. So you'll place the slide on the stage and then use the lowest power for a wider field of view. You're giving relevance to the point that you have made. Why are you using the lowest power, right, for a wider field of view? Next point, switch the lights on. For what reason? So that the light can pass through the onion tissue. Next point, move the stage as close to the lens, but do not allow the slide to touch the lens. Turn the focus knob until image comes into focus. Use the fine focus to get a clear image. And after that, you can change your objective lens to increase the magnification. All right, so students, this is a leveled response question. All right, so it's a 4 marker. 0 marks if you have provided no relevant points or content. 1 to 2 marks if you have provided content but the relevance are not clear. So students, these little things now would be the relevance. Relevance for use of lowest power for a wider field of view while we turn on the lights so that the light can pass through the onion tissue. All right, so if you did not give those points and they're not clear, you will fall into the 1 to 2 marks bracket. And then 3 to 4 marks is if you have written down your points in detail and the account is accurate. Question 2. Describe the process by which water and mineral ions enter the root hair cells. And this values 4 marks. So we know that water enter by osmosis. Mineral ions enter by active transport. All right, so let us look at the answer. So water moves from higher concentration, which is in the soil, into the root hair cells, and that's where lower concentration of water is found, across a partially permeable membrane in a process that is called osmosis, and no energy is required for this process. Students, the words and the concepts that I've underlined, these are key scientific terminologies and concepts that must be written for you to get the 2 marks. All right, so, and if you look at it, students, you'll notice that this is basically the definition for osmosis. All right, let's look at how mineral ions now enter the root hair cells. Mineral ions move from lower concentration, and make sure you identify where lower concentration is, which is in the soil, into the root hair cells, which would be higher concentration, against a concentration gradient in a process that is called active transport. And this is very important now, students. You must mention that energy is required for this process. And remember, the energy comes from respiration, and you'll get 2 marks for this. So do not leave out the key concepts and the key words to get your full marks. Next question, describe the process of the cell cycle for 4 marks. I have seen this question valuing 5 marks, students. Whether you see it for 4 marks or 5 marks, please write everything that I'm putting up on the slide right now. All right, so there are 3 stages or phases of the cell cycle: interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. Please, students, organize your writing so that the examiner can find your response easy to mark. All right, so let's start with stage 1. You can write stage 1 or you can write the name of stage 1, which is called interphase. All right, so in interphase, we have the cell growing. Organelles such as ribosomes and mitochondria, they increase in number and the DNA replicates. And you'll get 1 mark for this. If it's a 5-marker student, you'll get 2 marks. Next stage is mitosis or stage 2. And the chromosomes, they divide and one set is pulled to each end of the cell. That's for 1 mark. And then the nucleus divides. That's another mark there for stage 2. And then the last stage, stage 3 or cytokinesis, this is where the cell membrane and cytoplasm divides. You notice that and is in bold, students. That is how it is in the mark scheme. You must say cell membrane and cytoplasm to get the 1 mark. All right. Next question is from digestion. Before I get into the question, students, let me encourage you to study your content. I do not want you to go on to memorize mark schemes or even memorize the answers that I'm sharing right here. You need to study your content. You need to know your content. You don't know what is coming on the exam. I don't know what is coming either. And so it is important that you study your content and then go on to practice your exam questions. I have quite a bit of videos here on YouTube that covers the content. They're very useful. Go ahead and use them. All right, let's get into the question now. Describe and explain how the villi are adapted for the absorption of products from digestion. Products would be the glucose and the amino acids. But there are 2 command words in this question. You're describing the villi and explaining how the descriptions that you have provided allows for efficient absorption of the products of digestion. That is what you're doing. All right, so for each description, for example, many microvilli, you need to provide an explanation. And the explanation is that many microvilli will allow for an increased or larger surface area. All right, number 2, good blood supply. That's the description. And the explanation is to maintain the concentration gradient. Number 3, thin walls. That's the description. For shorter diffusion distance, that's the explanation. And number 4, many mitochondria for active transport of products. All right, so this is a 5-mark of students, and so providing 3 descriptions and 3 explanation would give you your 5 marks. All right. Next question. Describe how water is transported from the soil to the atmosphere through a plant for 4 marks. So students, in your response, you must mention about the water moving from the soil. You must mention something about the water moving through the plant and getting to the atmosphere. All right, so let us look at the response. So point number 1 is that the root hair cells absorb water from the soil by osmosis. So we can say that this part has been answered. Students, ensure that you mention this word osmosis. Next point. The water travels up the stem in the xylem. So they wanted to know how the water moves through the plant, right? So we can say that this point, value 1 mark, and this point matches with this part. Good. And then lastly, we need to speak now about how the water gets to the atmosphere. All right, so let's read point number 2 again. It says the water travels up the stem in the xylem in the transpiration stream as water evaporates and diffuses through the stomata. Right, so the water evaporates and it leaves to enter this atmosphere through the stomata. Remember, the stomata would be the pores or the holes that are found on the leaves. All right, and that's 1 mark there and 1 mark there, and that's your 4 marks. Thank you so much for watching and all the best in your exams. Bye bye.